You're listening to the Fed and Fearless podcast. On today's episode, I'm sharing some big news with you and telling you more about how I'm incorporating this life change into my business plans. So stay tuned. Welcome to the Fed and Fearless podcast. I'm your host, Laura Schoenfeld, a registered dietitian, nutrition business coach, and online entrepreneur with over 10 years of experience in online business. And I'm here to show you everything I've learned about creating a life and a business that nourishes you. On this podcast, we'll talk about the lifestyle habits, practical strategies, mindset shifts, and leaps of faith required to build a healthy body, a powerful mind, a strong spirit, and a successful business. Hey there, and welcome back to the Fed and Fearless podcast. I'm Laura Schoenfeld, your host as always, and today's episode is going to be a little different than my typical episodes, even my typical solo episodes, because I'm going to be sharing with you some personal news and really giving you a behind the scenes look into not only how my personal life is going to change because of this news, but also how we're actually adjusting our business plans and business strategy to account for this big life change. So as some of you may already know, and this is the first time I'm really speaking about it publicly, as of the day of this recording, I am 12 weeks pregnant, which is very exciting news, obviously. By the time this episode comes out, I think we'll be I'll be 15 weeks. I forget exactly when this episode is coming out, but I'll be in my second trimester. Fingers crossed, I'll be feeling a little bit better. I keep hearing that the second trimester is supposed to be better. So at the moment, I have not made it there yet, but I found out I was pregnant back in October. I believe it was October 17th was when we did the test. And I want to tell you a little bit about how this all came about, because if you're someone who knows me personally, you may know that having kids wasn't necessarily something that I was always like so into or so obsessed with the idea about. And I know that in our culture, for women especially, there's a lot of pressure to become a parent, right? And if you're married, and I've been married for almost 5 years now, it'll be 5 years, like pretty much right around the time my due date is, family, friends, people start asking you, so when are you having kids? Are you going to have kids? That kind of thing. And it's something that whenever people would ask me that question, I didn't always have a great answer for it, because on one hand, I think in the back of my mind, I was like, well, I feel like I do want kids. I wasn't one of those people that was like, no, I don't want kids. And there's nothing wrong with that. So I just want to make sure throughout this entire episode that nobody who is not having kids or can't have kids, or for whatever reason you're not going to become a parent, that there's no shame about that. So I just want to make sure you guys know that that's how I feel, because I know sometimes you don't always get that from people. But it is something where in the last few years, we've been getting asked more frequently when, are you going to have kids? When are you going to do that? Where are you at with that? And for a long time, I just really wasn't ready as somebody who owns a business. And, in the last couple months, I'm now the sole income provider in my family. So that's kind of a big deal. And obviously a lot of people do that for their families, whether they're a single parent, whether they're, the one person in the couple that has a job. I know that that's something that a lot of people do, but I know that it's also not something that our society necessarily supports super well, having a female be the one that is in charge of the money making and also in charge of the human creation. So it's not something that is necessarily super common. It's also not something that is super well supported in our current society. And there was honestly a lot of fear that I had about what would happen when I did get pregnant, and if I did get pregnant, right? Because obviously before you get pregnant, you don't know if that's going to happen. Nobody knows for sure. But over the last year or so, my business has changed so substantially, as many of you know. Last year, basically in June, was when I launched my Nutrition Business Accelerator program, the beta version of the program, and started that from scratch in June. Kind of on a whim. It wasn't like a total whim. Like I put a lot of energy and effort into designing the program and coming up with the idea for it. But it was inspired by an opportunity that I had to meet with a few hundred business owners, specifically in the nutrition space, and coach them on some stuff. And I had already been coaching a mastermind. I had some one-on-one clients. So it's not like this was a totally brand new thing, but it was the first time I was creating a more specific program for that business. And so lots of stuff changed. And when that MBA program launched, and then I relaunched it, and then now we've launched it 4 total times. This is really honestly one of the biggest revenue generators for my business. And it's something that I see as continuing to be that for my business. We have a lot of clients that have gone through this program. At this point, I think we have like 170 people that have done the program in the last year and a half, which is so exciting. And I just want to continue growing that. So that is something that has changed a ton since last year. The way that I work has also changed a ton. So I have 3 team members that I have on my business team now that were not part of my team before June last year. So I had some help. I had a VA that was working with me prior to that, but I was doing a lot of stuff on my own in my business. And so when that was the case, when I was doing most of the business by myself, and I also didn't have necessarily an offer that I felt this level of confident about, it was more scary for me to think about having a baby. And my husband at that time was a teacher, so his income was not great, as unfortunately a lot of you know, especially depending on where you live. North Carolina teacher salaries are pretty terrible. Even though he had over 10 years of teaching experience, there was really not a lot of opportunity for increase of revenue, or I always say revenue. I'm so used to revenue, income potential for him in that particular job. And he actually went to grad school with the thought that he, using his master's degree, would actually get a better job or a different job, some kind of job that would have a higher income potential. Sadly, as COVID hit and the particular area of study that he chose, which was tourism and sports administration, that particular industry got hit pretty hard, obviously, with the pandemic, and I think it's still recovering. And so him being able to get a well-paying job in that field was relatively unlikely, especially if we aren't interested in moving, which we're not. We have an amazing community where we live. And so we live outside of Raleigh, North Carolina, and it's there's not a ton of jobs in that space necessarily. We don't have many pro sports teams. And again, with the pandemic, so much of the live events, so sports, music, that kind of thing, were not running as normal. So it just wasn't a great time for somebody graduating in the tourism and sports. And gosh, I feel like it was like recreation management. It was kind of a long title to his master's degree. So this was all happening about a year and a half ago. And like I said, we made a massive pivot in my business. I forget exactly when I stopped taking nutrition clients officially, but I believe it was the end of 2020. And then 2021 has been a year where we've really been focusing on growing the MBA program and enhancing our next programs. So we have a program that comes after MBA called MBA Next Level, and then we have our Nutrition CEO Mastermind. And so those 2 programs are for people who have either graduated MBA and are ready for the next step. And this is usually more for the mastermind, but some people come to me, they're already making 6 figures, multi-6 figures in their business, and they want to grow and scale that. So that's something that we help people with inside of the mastermind. So all of that to say, there's been a lot of changes in the last 2 years in so many ways, personal, business. And so with all of those changes, and especially with all the pandemic stuff happening, I felt like this kind of weird uncertainty about getting pregnant. So on one hand, it was like, oh, there's all this stuff that's changing and it's all in flux. And, you know, I need to be really leading this so I don't have, the energy to spare to not be fully able to handle all these changes that we're making. And then also with all the health stuff going around, I wasn't super excited about the idea of being in a hospital or having to go to a doctor multiple times a month or anything like that during the peak of the pandemic. So that was something that really delayed us mentally, more me so than my husband, but just felt like I wasn't feeling super comfortable about the idea of getting pregnant during that phase of the world, that phase of my business. And so 2021, like I said, was this interesting year. I don't know if I've ever had a year like this in my business where we really were focused on refinement of our programs and also of our launch strategy. So like I said, we've launched NBA 4 times at this point, and we plan to launch it. I'm thinking twice a year. We'll see. I can't obviously make any promises, but we are planning to reopen the program for enrollment in spring of 2022. And so launching, as any of you might know, if you've ever done a launch, takes a lot of trial and error. And what I mean by trial and error is that typically you're not going to knock it out of the park on your first launch or your second, or maybe even your third. I feel like we learned a lot about our messaging in the first couple of launches. The first launch was just a beta where I didn't even have a formal launch strategy. It was more just like, hey, this is an opportunity. If you want to join us, it's half price of what it's going to be next time we launch. So a very traditional off-the-cuff beta for that one. But we did 2 webinar launches of NBA, and those went well. I was happy with it. And I also knew we could do better. So then we switched over to a live launch strategy this past fall. And we basically doubled our results, which I was super stoked about. I honestly was a little surprised by how well it did, which is always nice, right? It's always nice to be surprised in a positive way. But it definitely well exceeded my expectations and our goals. And that was super exciting. And now, just seeing how well it worked and how well not only the launch worked, but also the type of people that joined the program, the results they're getting, how they felt they were taken care of in the program. We just really worked very hard this year to get NBA into this pretty well-oiled machine where not only the marketing and the launching piece feels like we're good with it, and maybe we'll make some enhancements, but we're not necessarily going to make any massive changes. And then the program itself is running really smoothly, and we're having really good results, good experience with our customers, and we've put a lot of work into making that something that's going to be a great experience for the people who do it. So that was a huge focus of 2021. 2021 was also interesting because I got into James Wedmore's mastermind, which is something that's been a dream of mine for a couple of years now, and was always something I was so excited about the possibility of. I didn't know how I was going to do it or when it was going to happen. But because of last year and the way that our business took off last year, it was something that was made available. And, obviously I had to get accepted. It wasn't just I signed up because I wanted to. I had to apply and be interviewed and all of that. But being in that mastermind was really, really pivotal for me to learn a lot of the strategies to become the leader that my business needs. So, there's a lot of stuff I know about ticky-tacky strategy when it comes to webinars and live launches and messaging and program design, all this stuff that I've been doing for almost 8 years now. And I haven't ever necessarily needed to be in that leadership role in my business before because I was doing everything mostly myself for so long. And so now that I have a team, being able to lead my team effectively and to really create a business, and as James calls it, a business machine, as opposed to just being reactive and doing things on the fly and being a little bit more scrappy, which there's nothing wrong with that, but you can't do that forever. Just having this opportunity this year to learn how to be a better leader for my team and also for my clients was something that was very challenging. It really, forced me to go deep into why I act the way I do, what my beliefs are, that kind of thing. But I think it has just helped me become, like I said, a better leader to my team, a better leader in my business. And I know that next year is even going to be better because I am rejoining that mastermind for next year. And I know that James has mentioned that they're going to be focusing even more heavily on leadership and team building and everything, which I'm super excited about. So I just wanted to give you some context. Sometimes I think it's going to be a short episode and then I get talking and I'm like, wow, I have a lot to say. So that was kind of just setting the stage for the last year and a half. And like I said, I've been married for 4.5 years. I am 34, going to be 35 in April. So I'm not a spring chicken anymore when it comes to fertility. And so I started to kind of be thinking more seriously about pregnancy this year. And as many of you know, I am a Christian, and that's something that is a very integral part of my life as far as how it affects my decision-making, how it affects my values. And I felt that over the past year, I have a relationship with God. I this is going to sound a little weird if you're not Christian, but I feel like I communicate with God. He communicates with me. I feel like God is very very much a big part of my intuition. I think I do have some unique skills when it comes to intuition and just knowledge. I don't know how to explain it exactly, but there's certain things that I'll just know that I'm like, okay, there's no way that that just came from me. Obviously, as an example, I knew, it was March of 2016, and I felt like God said to me, it's time to meet your husband. I had been single for 5 years and I didn't know any single guys. And I was like, okay, God, sounds great. And literally a month later was when I ran across my husband on OkCupid of all places. So that's a whole nother story, maybe for another day. But as far as the pregnancy is concerned, I had that same kind of knowing that came into my awareness this year about believing it was time to get pregnant. And it was interesting because it wasn't this feeling of, oh my gosh, I'm ready. I want to have a baby. Like that wasn't what it felt like. It was more just like God was telling me now is the time. And to be honest, that scared me a little bit because again, there's just been so many things that we've been doing this year and it's been a super busy year. I like many X'd the number of clients that I was working with, especially in the business realm. Just to give you some context, in the beginning of 2020, I had 7 total business clients. And then this year, I've worked with, like I said, this year specifically, probably about 100. So lots of people. And that feels like a big change. If you've ever had that kind of growth in your business, and if you haven't yet, you'll find out. But just going from such a small group of people that you're working with to a really big group of people, it can feel difficult to really feel like you're still doing a good job and to feel like you're supporting people the way that they're expecting and hoping for. And we didn't do it perfectly. And there's definitely a lot of experiences this year that were very difficult for me, my team, just dealing with unmet expectations, not necessarily things that we promised that we didn't deliver on, but unspoken expectations that were not met and having to deal with some, significant conflict with clients, former clients, that kind of thing. So it was, and that didn't happen a ton, but it happened a few times and it was very emotionally difficult because I'm the kind of person that I like everyone to be happy and I like to do a good job. So when somebody's not happy with what I'm doing, and again, that's another area for growth that I've been working on this year, but it's something that I tend to take very personally as a historical trend. And so that kind of stuff, dealing with it, made me feel like, oh my gosh, there's like literally no way I could be pregnant and deal with this stuff at the same time. So I was definitely resistant to the idea. And I felt like, again, that was like put on my heart multiple times this year. I would be in a church service where our pastor was talking about something about obedience and taking steps in faith and that kind of thing. And I would be reminded of like, hey, God's asking you to get pregnant and you're not doing it. And so I started to feel a level of conviction about that. That kind of made me uncomfortable because, and that's what conviction is in my faith practice. It's not about shame or about being a bad person or anything. It's more just like my belief is that God has the best plan for me and I can either follow the path that he's laying out for me or resist it and do my own thing and face the consequences of that. And so overall, my goal is to always be following what God says. But for this one, I definitely went, it took me a few months to really feel like I was ready to trust that path for me. And I kept putting it off. Josh and I, my husband, were kind of like, okay, we'll like start trying in June of 2021. And then June rolls around. And I was like, I'm not ready. And then it's like, okay, well, let's wait until after the next launch. And there's just all these delays that I kept putting onto that situation. And after our big NBA launch and after we had like an amazing, it was a $300,000 launch from a total projected sales amount. And that's the biggest launch I've ever had by almost double. So it was amazing. And so, that was kind of maybe like a little God nod as far as saying, okay, here's your provision. Like, stop worrying about money. Stop worrying about how you're going to, run your business. And let's start doing what I'm asking you to do. And so for me, it wasn't this feeling of, I'm ready, let's do this, I'm excited. It was more about my faith and feeling like, how can I say I trust God with my life if I'm actually not acting like I trust him? So that was really big for me. And again, I know not everybody feels or operates that way in their life. And this is just me sharing what I've been going through. But it is something where I felt like I'm asking God to bless my business, to bless my marriage, to bless my finances, to bless my relationships, all of that. And it's like, for me personally, I started to feel a little, not guilty, but convicted. I started to feel convicted that I'm asking God to do all this stuff for me. And yet I can't even do the one thing that he's asking me to do. So really that's what it came down to when it came to getting pregnant, was like, listen, if I'm going to truly trust in God with my life, that means that I have to trust that what he's leading me into, even if I'm scared, is the right step and is the right path and is the right thing to do. And that there's things that I'll experience because of those choices and those steps that I can't even imagine right now. Like, that's the other thing I have to remember. There's been so many times in my life where I felt God leading me in a certain area, and I had no idea what was going to happen. Like, even before I met my husband, I didn't know who that was going to be. I didn't have any clue who this person was going to be when it came to meeting my husband. And then when it came to launching the business coaching business, that was a total let's just see what happens. I have no idea. I had literally no way to predict what was going to happen this year. So I try to look back on that stuff and remember that most often, if not, almost all the time, whenever I trust God and do something that scares me, I get a great outcome. And it's something that is even better than I would have expected. So that's kind of where my head was at when I decided to stop preventing pregnancy. We have been using fertility awareness method for pregnancy prevention for our entire marriage. So I shouldn't say never, but it's been 15 years since I was on birth control. So, and I was only on it for 3 months. So, we, basically were just like, all right, well, we're not going to prevent pregnancy anymore. It wasn't like we were actively trying like some people might be trying, but we were just like, we're not going to stop it. And whatever happens, happens. And we'll trust that God's timing is God's timing and that it'll be the right timing. And literally that same month that we stopped preventing it, I got pregnant, which on one hand, being 34, I had a lot of people telling me, oh, you don't want to wait too long because the older you get, the harder it's going to be. And you don't know how long it's going to take. And I hear that, and it's true as far as, what's typical for women's fertility. And again, going back to that ability to kind of know things that are really, there's really no reason I should know these things. I knew in my head, I'm going to get pregnant immediately. So that's another reason why I put it off so long. So I was like, I really, for whatever reason, don't think I'm going to be someone who takes a long time to get pregnant. I mean, I'm a healthy person. I've been taking a prenatal and eating well for probably about a year now, with just the expectation that we might be doing the pregnancy thing soon. So overall, I'm healthy, but you never know, right? My husband's 41, I'm 34. It's not like I was going to be cocky about it and say, of course I'm going to get pregnant right away. But I really did think that's going to happen very quickly for me, just from a maybe a supernatural knowledge perspective. And like I said, it did. The first month that we stopped preventing the pregnancy is when I got pregnant. And so, like I said, I found out on October 17th. And to be honest, I was not that happy about it. My husband was happy. I wasn't devastated about it, but we were leaving the day after I found out I was pregnant for almost 2 full weeks in Arizona. I was going to an event that my coach James was running. And then we had a team retreat planned. And then I had my own mastermind retreat that I was running. And that's when the day before I found out I was pregnant. So I was kind of stressed. And in hindsight, looking at my travel schedule in October and November, maybe wasn't the ideal time to get pregnant. But of course, like I said, I trust God with it. So I trust that that was the ideal time to get pregnant. And that's why it happened. And so the first couple weeks, I didn't really feel much. I was kind of a little bit in shock, to be honest. Even when I showed up to the event that James was running, I'm usually a pretty chatty person, as you guys probably can hear by now. And I was kind of deer in headlights for the event that I was at. And I remember James came up to me. He's like, hey, is everything okay? You don't really seem like yourself right now. I'm like, yeah, just got some stuff going on and I'll tell you about it later. So he noticed, and he's a very perceptive person. So he was pretty much the only person who necessarily openly noticed something about me being different. But I was just feeling, like I said, kind of shell-shocked, not really wanting to share anything with people. I mean, at that point, I was literally 4.5 weeks pregnant, maybe 5. So it was so new, and I wasn't ready to just start telling a bunch of strangers or people that I have only known for a couple of months that, oh, I'm pregnant. Like that wasn't where my head was at. So it just it felt really isolating, and it felt like I couldn't talk to anybody about it other than my husband. And it was tough. We also had some kind of rough travel experience to get to Arizona, which was unfortunate. And it was just like a very exhausting experience to go straight from I'm pregnant to, this super intense travel experience to being in a room with a bunch of people, some of them I didn't even know, and just kind of like trying to learn about business and coaching and that kind of thing, and still being in this like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening state. So that happened. And then I did actually tell James, because James was coming to our mastermind retreat as a guest expert, and he had actually been very sick during our summer retreat. He got like really gnarly altitude sickness. And so he ran our summer retreat for the mastermind, hardly being able to function. And so I was like, all right, well, he probably gets it, even though he'll never be pregnant. He at least could maybe understand some of the fears I have about running a high level event, feeling not myself. So I did let him know. And of course, it was really sweet to be able to tell him, because he's, one of my mentors, and he's super excited for us. And so anyway, long story short, he gave me some advice about, just knowing that everything would still be okay, even if I had to change the way that I was showing up. And actually, the advice he gave me is something that I'm taking into next year, which was to not make it about me. And that's, as somebody who, I know technically I'm an extrovert, but I don't really like to have the spotlight on me. That's something that I really need to embody in my business. And I know I want to embody in my business, is this idea that it's not about me and about like what I'm doing and about like, my expertise and my awesomeness and that kind of thing. But it's really more about creating the opportunity for my clients to develop their expertise and their knowledge. And so that was super helpful advice, because I didn't feel like I could show up as my best self in terms of, my most energized and like, mentally energetic self. And that did freak me out, because I am somebody who wants to show up like that for my clients. So going into the mastermind retreat that I was running, just having that opportunity to really like focus on helping my clients help each other and to come up with their own ideas was something that I really focused on. And then, of course, I was super blessed to have James and my mastermind friend, Jess Glazer, who you guys met a couple weeks ago. She came in as a guest expert for our group, and they both did an amazing job teaching. So it definitely took some of the pressure off of me to teach a bunch. But going into that event and not feeling well, starting to feel nausea because I was getting into my 6th week, just like really letting go of this belief that I have to be performing at a super high level for my clients to have a good experience. So that was a really interesting experience. It was hard. I didn't feel well. I was getting tired, was, starting to get those pregnancy symptoms. And it was a difficult experience for me, but I do think the people that were there had a really great experience. And it taught me that I didn't have to be the one doing everything for my clients to have a good outcome. So that was a really important lesson. And so it's really been 8 weeks at this point since I found out. I unfortunately have not been feeling great. It's having worked with a lot of pregnant women, I know it could be a lot worse. So I'm grateful that I've only thrown up once. So I know that there's women out there that are throwing up multiple times a day. And I'm so grateful that that's not my situation. But running a business and working with tons of clients, like yesterday, I had 6 hours of coaching calls, and being nauseous and exhausted is not fun. I will admit that it's something that it's been hard, and it's been something that there was a couple of days, like specific days, where I just felt, I kind of just felt like I couldn't handle it. Like I did handle it. So, looking back, obviously I could, but I would wake up in the morning already feeling nauseous, and they call it morning sickness. But as most of my pregnant friends have said, it's not really in the morning. It's pretty much all day, and, sometimes overnight and that kind of thing. So I would wake up already feeling nauseous, already being like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I have to like do this day. And again, I had scheduled some days in my calendar before I got pregnant that were literal like 6 to 8 hour days of coaching, doing podcasts, that kind of thing. So there were a few days there that I was definitely struggling emotionally and mentally, and physically. But like I said, I really think the physical stuff is if I was just like laying around or, just kind of puttering around my house, I think I could handle the physical symptoms more than what I was experiencing in the last 8 weeks. And it was definitely tough. And I honestly don't know if I was mentally prepared for being sick for 8 weeks. I've never been sick this long. I've never had this experience where I just literally felt not good every single day I wake up for a full 2 months. I've been sick before, but it's only been like a couple weeks. Or if I had low energy, it wasn't like the level of low energy where I have to nap for 2 hours or I have to sleep overnight for 10 hours. If any of you have ever been pregnant, you can probably empathize, but it's this level of fatigue where it's like, I don't even know if I can describe it. Like, I just feel like I physically can't move sometimes. Like if I go up the stairs, I get winded. Like if I move too fast, I just like get dizzy. And apparently this is normal, especially in the stage of pregnancy that I'm in because I'm growing the placenta, which takes a lot of energy and a lot of blood supply. But I'm not used to feeling that way. And I have a lot more empathy for people who feel like that on a regular basis now, having been in it for the last 2 months. But as a business owner who's used to feeling really high energy and really mentally like with it and, engaged and all of that, it was really hard. And I'm not ashamed to admit that. Like I feel like it's one of these things where we have to be able to talk about this kind of stuff because I think sometimes it's really easy to assume other people are doing so well and it's, they're just handling everything so easily and everything like that. And I don't know, it's like, obviously I'm not showing up on social media, like complaining about how crappy I feel. Like I'm sharing with you now in this moment to kind of make a point here, but it's something where you wouldn't necessarily have known from what you were seeing in my public facing content in the last 2 months that I was feeling as poorly as I was. So like I said, I think I've learned a lot about what I'm capable of doing and also what I need to do for myself to not push myself too hard and to really respect what my body needs. And I've been learning that lesson for years now. So this is just like the next level of that lesson. But it's just a reminder to you guys to know that most of what people are dealing with and struggling with and going through, you're not necessarily privy to it. You don't know that about people. You wouldn't have known it about me unless I told you. So just remember that anytime you're looking at other people and assuming that their life is perfect, just remember that they might have something going on that you don't know about. And again, I'm so grateful that we got pregnant so easily and I'm not vomiting 6 times a day. Like I've had some clients that had that experience. So, I do have a ton of gratitude for how this pregnancy has gone so far. And I'm, going to be honest and say that it's been rough. It's been a rough 2 months. And even yesterday, I was feeling relatively nauseous for the entire 6 hours that I was coaching and was not necessarily excited about having to do 6 hours. Of course, I showed up and had the mindset that I was going to serve every single person, whether it was a one-on-one client or a group coaching call. I do feel like I did a good job. I'm proud of myself for how I showed up for those calls. But I definitely was, I would have liked to have that day off as far as how I was feeling. So long story short, it's definitely been a difficult 2 months. I'm hoping that by the time this episode comes out, I'll be in my second trimester and hopefully feeling a lot better. That's, again, what people keep telling me. So I'm going to just trust that that's coming for me in the next couple of weeks. But even if it doesn't, just knowing that like I have the control to set my schedule up so that I can start to take more time off. I can start to have more rest time during the day if I need it, that's something that I'm going to be taking very seriously next year. So all of that said, that was a big buildup to what I'm doing with my business for next year to handle this change. So obviously the first trimester of pregnancy has been difficult and there's been a lot of fatigue, nausea, dizziness, brain fog. Like my memory is garbage right now. I'm just not used to it. I feel like I'm usually very intellectually capable and lately I have not felt that way and it's very weird. So, just something that I had to get used to and kind of like let go of any sort of judgment or control around. But even if the second and third trimester are better, there is the birth and postpartum period and becoming a new mom. I've never had a baby before. I really don't spend a lot of time with babies. That's not something I have a lot of experience with. And so there is a huge life change coming for me and my husband. And I feel like I can't even imagine it, right? Like I'll be listening to this podcast a year from now and being like, girl, you literally had no idea what was coming. I'm very confident that's how I'm going to feel. But, for any of you who have had children, you probably can understand that you don't know what's coming. You literally have no idea how to actually prepare, and there's really no way to prepare for it, right? So I'm of the mindset that I'm going to do what I can to prepare for it, but I'm also letting go of this belief that there is any way to fully prepare or to really, have any clue what's coming down the pipeline in the next 6 to 7 months. So all of that said, we're making some pretty big changes to the business next year to account for this. So my due date is June of 2022. And of course, with, your first pregnancy, maybe it'll be in June, maybe it'll be in July. Who knows, right? But that's what my expectation is, that it'll be in June. And so we're actually scheduling our entire year between the promotions that we're running, the programs that we're running. And for our year-long programs, we're making some accommodations for June and July so that people can still get the support that they need in their business the way that we're promising, and also that it's not necessarily me that needs to be doing that support. So as an example, one of the changes I'm making for next year is that I'm actually eliminating almost all one-on-one services for next year. Now, that doesn't mean that they're gone forever. Maybe they'll come back. Maybe, even before the end of the year, I might feel like I'm up for doing some half VIP days or something like that. But I'm really cutting down that one-on-one to very, very few. The only people that will have access to me on a one-on-one level is my mastermind. And even with them, we used to have at least 12 one-on-one calls for them to book throughout the year. And what we're actually doing instead for this year is we're giving them a half VIP day, which is a 3-hour block that they can book at any time in the year. And then we're also doing I kind of jokingly call it a phone a friend style of coaching, where I'm available on Voxer for them if they have questions or need support with something. And then if it's something that would benefit from a short phone call, that we can do it really on demand. And there's actually a couple benefits to that. So for me personally, there's a benefit because if I'm not feeling well, or, I have like some unexpected doctor's appointment or something like that, it's nice to know that I don't have things scheduled that need to get canceled. I hate having to cancel stuff. And as much as I can avoid having to do that, that's my goal. So knowing that we can have that flexible one-on-one support, as opposed to it being like, you have to schedule your calls and we have this hour block that we've committed to, that'll really help me be able to do what I need to do as a new mom without feeling like I'm, canceling services that I had promised, or, obviously moving them, but I really hate canceling stuff. So I don't want to cancel stuff. And then also something that I've noticed is with my mastermind clients, who many of them are already in that multi-6-figure, like $500,000 a year kind of revenue range, they're really busy. And I actually found that for the ones that were the most successful from a financial perspective, it was hard for them to get those sessions booked for their own calendar. So I actually feel very strongly that doing it this way, where it's that flexible one-on-one support that we can kind of just jump on a call quickly if we need to, whenever the person is going through something that they need some support around, I actually think that's going to be a much better fit for people who are at that level of business where scheduling a 1-hour call into their schedule is actually kind of difficult. So I think that's actually going to be a great change for my clients as well as me. So I'm excited about that. I will say it's something that feels a little weird because I've been doing one-on-one as almost like a primary time block in my week since 2014. So, that'll be like 8 years that I've been doing it by the time 2022 rolls around. And so the idea of hardly having any one-on-one at all is actually very, it's exciting, but it's also kind of like a little nerve-wracking for me because I'm not used to that. It's not the way I've run my business in the past. So it's something that I help my clients with, the clients that want to get rid of one-on-one or want to significantly reduce it. We've been able to help people do that and scale their group programs, their courses and stuff to multi-6 figures this year, which has been really cool. And I know that's what our business is capable of doing, and it already has done that. And so I know that our business will do just fine, if not thrive, without having all that one-on-one, but it does feel weird and it does require me creating some boundaries with clients, people that I actually really love working with who want to continue one-on-one, and I have to say no. And it's hard because it's not like I want to release those clients. I love working with them, but I have to do what I have to do, right? And the business needs what the business needs. And I have to put the business and my motherhood needs above the need for me to have, ongoing coaching relationships with these people. And again, it's not an easy decision. A lot of the decisions we've made for next year are not easy decisions, but I'm coming from the angle that I absolutely have to protect my energy. I have to protect my physical, mental well-being, and I have to protect the relationship that I'm going to be building with this new human that's coming. And there's some very intentional choices that I have to make now so that can be protected later. So that's been a huge lesson that I've learned even already before having a child. And I'm sure that'll be a lesson that keeps repeating itself after I have a child, but it's something where I definitely teach boundaries and I love seeing my clients set boundaries. And when I'm doing it myself, sometimes it does feel hard and sometimes I don't like it. And it doesn't necessarily feel good to tell a client that I really love working with and I love doing one-on-one with to say, I'm sorry, we can't do this anymore this year. So that's been a little tough, but I'm also excited for what's possible in our business when I have that time back. Like, again, I've probably done like 8 to 10 hours of one-on-one this week, at least 8, I would say. And again, it's not that I don't like it. It's just, thinking about what I could be doing with that 8 hours to grow the business or to grow my team or to do what the business needs is exciting. So I am hopeful that the changes will benefit the business, benefit our clients, benefit our ability to reach new people. And it's also a sad choice to say that I can't work with certain people anymore, or that even if they're working with me, that it's going to be a different type of arrangement. So that's been a big change for next year. We've also scheduled out basically our whole year, tentatively, of course, because who knows what's going to happen. But we actually scheduled our launches of the NBA to avoid my 3rd and 4th trimesters. So 3rd trimester is the last 3 months up to birth, and then 4th trimester is the 3 months after birth. And those are times where I don't want to be launching. I've heard in the 3rd trimester, you get more tired. And then of course, there's always the potential risk of an early birth, hopefully not premature, but I think from what I've heard, I could be wrong about this, but I think like 37 weeks is considered full term. So that's a pretty solid, that's 3 to 4 weeks earlier than what a normal full term would be, 40, 41 weeks. So there's a lot of uncertainty in that last month of your pregnancy and even the last couple of months. So we are having our first launch, I believe it's Q1. Yeah, because Q1 is my 2nd trimester, Q2 is my 3rd trimester. I promise I did not plan it that way, but that's how it's happening. I'm actually following the quarters of the year, which is kind of fun, but we're going to have our next NBA launch in Q1, and then we're tentatively planning our next one for the end of Q3 with the flexibility of seeing how I feel. If I feel great, we might move it up. If I feel terrible, we might, either postpone it or maybe not launch again in 2022 at all. Like that's possible too. So we're making sure that we're not doing any sort of big promotional activities in Q2 and early Q3 so that my energy and my bonding with my new baby is protected. So I've actually never scheduled out an entire year before when it came to launch calendar, promotional calendar, that kind of thing. So this is the first year we're doing this, and I'm excited about that. I actually think that's kind of cool that we did it. So we're also looking to create some possible recurring or passive revenue streams. So things that can be selling year round that don't require any effort or energy from me or my team to manage. So that's another thing that we're hoping to add on to our business next year more effectively. Super nice to have money coming in and not necessarily having to be on the computer. So that's something that I would love to have as part of our business. And we've also been really focusing this year, and we're going to have even a stronger focus next year to train my team to be able to take over more for me. So we're actually investing in integrators / we don't really have like official titles for people's roles at the moment, but we're kind of moving Jen Zacconi into the integrator role and Becca Skinner into the growth side of the business. And my husband is operations. We're kind of all hands on deck with fulfillment right now, but who knows, we might hire somebody else to be the head of fulfillment at some point. So my team has done such a great job since I got pregnant taking over stuff for me. I'm actually super grateful that they've been able to do that. And I also know that there's always more that we can learn about running as an effective team. So Jen is actually going to be doing a leadership training program that Team Wedmore is running, which I'm so excited about. It's a new program that they're offering for team members to go through in order to become more effective at their roles. So super pumped about that. And I know Jen is over the moon excited to be part of that as well. And Becca is actually doing a copywriting certification program to learn more about writing copy. So, sales pages, opt-in pages, social media captions, all the conversion type of writing that we need to do in our business. I've done that for my business plus Chris Kresser's business for, I guess it'll be 10 years coming up. So I've had a lot of experience with that, and having someone else on the team that can do it is also going to be really exciting. So she's getting trained in copywriting. I'm actually doing an NLP, so a neuro-linguistic programming workshop in January. So that's something I've learned more about this year that I'm super excited to dive deeper into because it'll help me become a better coach. So there's a lot of different ways that we are getting trained as a team so that they can take over for a lot of what I would normally be doing and to take more off my plate so that I can really either not be working or be doing stuff that's more in my zone of genius / something that only I can do for the business. And a lot of that also has been forcing me to let go of the need to control everything. I definitely am a control freak by nature. I think it's my personality. My mom is like that. Hopefully my mom's not listening, but if she is, hi mom. And it's just something that I'm constantly learning how to let go of. And it's not this like one and done, oh, I'm letting go of all control. Now I have no issues with control anymore. It's been, one finger at a time letting go of the control, but just seeing my team take over for stuff and seeing what it feels like to not be the one responsible for everything is so nice that it's definitely motivating me to let go of more control. But there is a lot of fear around that. It's, this is my business that I've grown over the last 8 years, and to hand it over to somebody else, even when they're fully capable, is scary. So it's been a lot of things that I've had to do that are outside of my comfort zone in order to prepare for this. But the pregnancy has definitely kind of forced my hand to move faster than maybe I would have been comfortable with. And that's a good thing, right? I think anytime we can be pushed out of our comfort zone in business is good. It's not fun necessarily, but it's good. The other thing that's going to be impacted next year is the time that I'm spending with education. I'm often doing a lot of business education stuff. I love learning about running a business. I love learning about marketing, about coaching, all of that stuff. And I know that I need to start making some space for learning about pregnancy, birth, and motherhood, which feels a little daunting, I will admit. And again, because I don't have much experience with babies or children in general, because I don't do babysitting, that's not something I spend a lot of time with young children. I know that there's a lot I have to learn. And even childbirth, there's so much stuff that I know is not great about traditional conventional childbirth in this country. So I already know this. And I also don't necessarily know a lot about what the alternatives are. I am going to be my intention is to give birth at our local birth center, which is in a hospital. I have a midwife and an OBGYN. So the midwife is probably going to be the lead team member, but then the OBGYN will be available for any sort of emergency purposes. So, not necessarily doing a home birth at this point, but there's a lot of stuff that I've already learned already about childbirth that I'm like, holy cow, I had no idea that this was the case. And it makes me feel like I want to get educated so that I can advocate for myself, that my husband can advocate for me during that time, because I know it's a big deal, right? And so carving out time in my schedule to learn about birth and also motherhood, because again, it's not like the birth is the hardest part, right? I'm sure becoming an actual mother and taking care of this little tiny human that can't do anything for itself is, I'm sure, a lot harder than childbirth. And it is something where I don't necessarily feel like I know what I'm doing at all. And I know I'll probably never feel like I know what I'm doing, but I know that it's important to me to spend some time learning about that kind of stuff. So haven't really had the energy lately to do a ton of learning about anything, frankly, but I'm hoping that once we're in the second and third trimester, I'll have a little bit more energy and we'll have more time to really focus on the education piece for that change and that event that's happening. So that's how this next year is going to change for us. I'm sure there's other stuff that's going to change, but really making a big change to how I'm serving my clients, getting rid of scheduled one-on-one calls for the most part, and really focusing on either scheduled group calls or building a team that can support my clients. And, for the small group that's going to be in the mastermind, making sure that they know that they can contact me when they need to. But, so many of them are so self-sufficient that they may not need to contact me that often. Really getting my team on board and help training them so that they can take over more stuff from me, planning out our promotions around my third and fourth trimesters, and getting into that headspace of letting go of control and also making space for educating myself about childbirth and new motherhood. And I've already learned a lot of lessons already about this stuff. I'm definitely more of a perfectionist, not total workaholic, but I work a lot. And it's one of the main things I do during the week. And so having to take so much downtime and nap time and laying down and on breaks and stuff, that's not my typical way of operating. And so just giving myself that opportunity to rest as much as I need to or want to has been really, really essential for me to be able to show up for the scheduled things with the energy that I need. I've had to be really flexible with what most of my life looks like on a daily basis. I haven't really hardly been able to exercise more than a couple of times other than walking my dog, which even that's been a little challenging. Food has totally been probably one of the hardest challenges between, I'm not normally a snacker, but I've had to snack because I can't eat that much at meals. And then if I don't eat consistently, I'll get more nauseous. I've had a ton of food aversion, so most food is very repulsive to me right now, which is hard because I usually like most foods and I have a pretty broad palate, but I've been eating a lot of cheese, a lot of carbs, a lot of fruit. So those are kind of the things that I feel comfortable with. And then beyond that, I kind of have to force myself to eat things like meat or eggs or vegetables, that kind of stuff. And even then, I'm not really forcing myself that much. So I'm being super flexible with my food choices. Pretty much any sort of past life food restrictions like gluten or dairy or anything have totally gone out the window. I literally got 2 slices of New York style pizza for dinner the other night. And I was like, I would have not eaten this for dinner probably a year ago, but this is the only thing I can imagine wanting to eat right now. So between that and hardly exercising, I haven't been on my Peloton bike in a month and a half. I haven't worked out in my garage gym probably in 2+ months. So just huge changes to my day-to-day life that I've had to just kind of be flexible with. Going to bed earlier, sleeping more. There was a good period of time that we couldn't go out to restaurants because just smelling a restaurant honestly made me want to vomit. So changing our date night and all of that, it was a little shocking how much that had to change, but I've really just had to kind of let go of the need to control that. Again, that's kind of the big lesson here. I've had to ask for help a lot and not feel bad about it, even when in certain situations, the person who was being asked to help maybe didn't seem that excited about it. I will say I'm extremely blessed to have my husband not working anymore and also to have him be the kind of person he is, where he is super servant-hearted in general, and he's taken over so many things. He had already been cooking most meals leading up to getting pregnant because he resigned from his teaching position and now is part-time working for me, but really doing a lot of stuff for the church and at home. But now that I can't really handle smelling food at the moment, he's totally taken on pretty much any meal, either cooking it or going to pick it up if we're doing takeout. He's just been putting up with a lot. I feel like, we have a really good relationship, so it's not like I'm being a horrible person or anything, but there's a lot of stuff that even, feeding my dog on a day-to-day basis has been something he's taken over because smelling the dog food makes me feel like I'm going to barf. And a lot of times I'm not waking up early enough to really feed the dog on time. So he's been giving the dog his thyroid medication in the morning and feeding him both for breakfast and dinner. And that's been something that I didn't actually ask him to do, but well, maybe I might have asked him like once or twice if he could do it. And then he just started doing it on his own because he realized how helpful it was for me. So having him be helping me in the way that he's helping me has been really amazing. And like I said, I'm very grateful to be married to somebody like that. So shout out to Josh for being amazing. But even things like asking for him to help with the dog, I don't love having to do that because it's my dog and I don't want him to feel like he's doing something that he shouldn't have to do. But on the other hand, he, I'm sure, knows that I'm working really hard to have the financial provision for our life and our, lifestyle. And so I'm guessing he probably feels like it's something he can do to help make my life a little easier during this time while I am growing his child. So asking for help has been huge. Asking for help from my team, getting them to take on stuff that I've never asked them to do before. And I shouldn't say getting, I've been asking them and they've been happily saying yes to try doing things that they haven't done before. And really just like getting more, open to that has been really helpful. I mentioned before setting boundaries with clients, even the ones that I really love working with, and having to kind of really be firm, even when people are like, oh, are you sure you can't do one-on-one for next year? I'm like, oh, yes. So setting those boundaries and sticking to them has been difficult, but probably a good lesson to learn. And then the final lesson that I've learned, not only from myself, but I actually have 3 clients in my mastermind currently that are also pregnant and all due kind of around the March through June range, which is kind of hilarious. And having conversations with them about what they're preparing for and everything, plus thinking about what is going to be going on with my business. I've had to be really cautious about making any sort of assumptions about what's going to happen next year, not only with like specific dates and how I'm going to feel and everything, but even things like what the business is going to be capable of. It's really tempting to believe that the business will be harmed by pregnancy. And I think that's one of the reasons why it took me so long to finally like give in to, the whole motherhood thing. But I know that it's possible to actually not only do the same level of success financially, but I know that it's possible to grow financially and have a baby at the same time. There's a woman named Kate Northrup who has a book called Do Less. It's a really good book. I highly recommend it. It's one of the books I recommend in my MBA program. And she actually has talked about how her business had its first $1 million year, the year that she had her first child. And just knowing that somebody has had that experience makes me know that it's possible. That's one of the things I love about being in a program with other entrepreneurs, like a group program, a mastermind, that kind of thing, because you see what's possible because other people are doing it. And so I have lots of colleagues in the space in general, but like, for example, in the mastermind I'm in, there's a number of mothers and they've been so supportive and, really saying like, your business is just going to get better, right? Like, and I've had friends say that too, people who aren't necessarily in business, but I trust as spiritual advisors, and they say, God's going to bless your business with this change and you're going to be even more financially successful. So it's something that I've really been holding on to as a possibility. And again, I'm not going to beat myself up. Like the same as I'm not going to assume my business is going to suffer, I'm also not going to say, oh, of course I'm going to have $1 million a year because of having a baby. I'm not going to go into it with that level of expectation that then I attach to, right? So I would love to have a $1 million a year next year. I think it's totally possible and we're going to work towards that. That's our goal. And also if it doesn't happen, it's not that big of a deal. We've already done so well this year and we've grown our revenue substantially. And I know it's just going to keep growing based on, the trends that I'm seeing. And so I'm not going to put this pressure on myself to make something happen that doesn't necessarily have to happen. So the same goes for assuming things are going to get worse. I would not be making the assumption that my business is going to suffer. It's going to be different. There's going to be big changes that we've talked about, but I don't believe it's going to suffer. And I really do think there's a strong possibility that it'll actually grow because any business that requires less of me to be successful is actually a more healthy business. And so that's what we're working towards. I'm excited to see what happens. I'll keep you guys posted in the next few months. And then once I have this baby, I'm sure I'll be sharing stuff with you about what that's like. I think we need to talk more about this stuff because there aren't a lot of successful female entrepreneurs that are going through pregnancy and birth while they're running their successful business. So I'm hoping that I can inspire you guys throughout this journey. And I really do believe that this new phase of my life and the lessons that I'm learning and the challenges that I'm going to face and all of that, I really do believe it'll help me help women and especially mothers more effectively when it comes to entrepreneurship. So that episode went longer than I was thinking. I thought maybe it would be like a half an hour, and here we are past the hour mark. So thanks to you guys for hanging out with me in the last hour. I hope that this episode was interesting and helpful for you. Feel free to DM me on Instagram if you want to talk about what you heard today. I would love to hear from you and let me know if there's anything that I shared that is that's something that you're going to take with you to maybe change the way that you're approaching your business, whether or not you're a mom or pregnant or anything. There's a lot of stuff that I think you can learn from dealing with something like pregnancy that can apply to your business no matter what phase of life that you're in. So thanks for hanging out. I think this is our last episode for 2021, which is nuts. Can't believe we're already getting into 2022. So I hope that you guys have a wonderful new year, and I will see you in January. All right. Well, I hope you guys have a great week, and I'll see you next time. Bye, y'all. Hey there, Laura Schoenfeld here again. As you probably know, my greatest mission as a business coach and mentor is to help nutrition entrepreneurs create a purpose-filled and profitable business that nourishes both them and their clients. As a business coach with years of experience running a multiple six-figure online nutrition business, in 2019, I started sharing my experience helping hundreds of clients achieve their health goals through one-on-one services, group coaching programs, and online courses, to mentor other dietitians and nutritionists to help them do the same in their business. And in 2020, I officially closed the doors to my highly successful online nutrition business in order to focus exclusively on serving other nutrition entrepreneurs who want to grow their business faster than ever without having to sacrifice the things that matter to them, like their relationships and their health. This has been the next evolution in my mission to help make the world a healthier place, particularly for ambitious women who want to do big things in the world while still experiencing vibrant health. To date, our company has helped over 200 nutrition entrepreneurs from all over the world start, grow, and scale their nutrition businesses to six figures and even multiple six figures inside of our Nutrition Business Accelerator program and our high-level mastermind. It's been so incredible to watch the growth that's happened for these entrepreneurs inside of our coaching programs that have been designed exclusively for nutrition and dietitian business owners. And that's why I'm so excited to announce that applications are now open for our 2022 Nutrition CEO Mastermind. This one-of-a-kind mastermind is a carefully curated space for you to experience joyful and profitable business growth while being surrounded and supported by other driven nutritionists on the same exciting and challenging journey of entrepreneurship. When you join our year-long mastermind, you'll create relationships that will last a lifetime and achieve results in your business that you maybe have never even imagined for yourself. If you want to learn more about this opportunity to be a part of the 2022 Nutrition CEO Mastermind, go to lauraschoenfeld.com/mastermind. On that page, you'll find everything you need to know about what the mastermind includes, who it's for, and how to apply for your spot. Spots are limited, so don't wait to get your application in. Go to lauraschoenfeld.com/mastermind to send in your application, and I look forward to chatting with you soon.